Hey neighbors, the handyman here with Initiative Coffee Company. The Bill Allan here with Bill Allan World. We missed you last week, but it is time to rise and roll.
20. Hey, Brian, we have an incredible show.
We do. We owe them an incredible show. We missed last week. Lousy, presidents and whatever.
Yeah. So it's been a busy time. We have had tumultuous scheduling issues.
Mm-hmm.
We've had weather events here in Chicago. We have had building issues where the school has had not heat. Let me fix my English there. Where we haven't had heat, so the studio was as cold as it was outside, which was weird.
Which was not comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it's always cold in the studio, but it was like extra cold. So anyway, it's good to be back. Brian has taken the liberty of finding very interesting and cool things on Kickstarter. Brian, I was feeling a little burned out trying to find things on Kickstarter that were not 3D printable terrain or minis. So I'm glad that none of these things...
I think you're going to be excited this week.
Yeah. None of these things are 3D printed
these
terrain
are all,
or minis.
These are all like
real things.
Like games.
Yeah.
Specific RPGs or like ways to incorporate things into RPGs.
And I feel like kind of interesting. So I'm glad you scoped these out. So we're going to go over the Kickstarters.
Yep.
We'll do that stuff. And then we have some table topics, including one that we both share at this time. And I think it's valuable for DMs and players because it can affect everyone. And that is the topic of burnout, which you also came up with. And then last but certainly not least, we're going to take a look at the hinted / previewed
/ officially announced
upcoming release for D&D, which has to do with the salt marshes. So some of you that have had your finger on the D&D pulse, you'll maybe know about this already, but this is going to be our first live look. Like, we haven't previewed this.
I've only seen that an announcement was made.
Right.
Not even really what that announcement was.
Yes. And then, of course, towards the end of the show, we'll do Monster Monday, and we'll answer any questions that you guys might have, including any requests for kind of specific things. So without further ado, so Brian, the first Kickstarter that you found was called Storybook RPG.
Yeah.
And this looks cool. It doesn't have a...
It doesn't have a video.
Right, it doesn't have a video.
Disappointing to you. But...
Right.
I like the idea of what they're doing here. It's they're building an RPG system based off genres of literature, which I think is a cool kind of concept. I have no idea how it'll play out.
Right. And what we have here is a first-time starter. This is created by Josh, who I don't know who Josh is. This is from... it just started, really. I mean, so they have 39 days to go. They have 15 backers. They're at $761 of an $8,000 goal. Okay, so let's take a look. There's no video, which is fine. Be anyone you can imagine in any world you have ever dreamed of. So step into a world of wonder with Storybook, the easy-to-learn literary role-playing game. In Storybook, you play characters from any book, television show, video game, or even your own imagination. With a streamlined system, Storybook is easy for beginning players to learn, including children. Join friends in exciting adventures into worlds both familiar and strange. Play as a hopeful hero, a distressing damsel, a romantic... I wonder if he meant distressed.
I mean...
There's so much subtext in there.
There's a lot of subtext in there. I'm going to say distressed.
A romantic...
Give him the benefit of the doubt.
A romantic rogue, a snarky sidekick, a mouthy mentor, or literally anything you want. Be Sherlock Holmes, working beside Gandalf the Grey and Elizabeth Bennet to stop the nefarious plans of Pennywise the Clown on an alien planet. Whether you stay in one genre or mix it all up, you're guaranteed to have a good time with Storybook. A lifetime in the making. So then he kind of gives some background about books and role-playing games and kind of all that stuff. How does it work? When creating a storybook character, a player chooses a genre and an archetype. There are 5 of each in the core rulebook, though more will be added in later supplements. Genres are distinct categories of fiction. The 5 presented in the core rulebook are fantasy, horror, mystery, romance, and sci-fi. The story that the characters are part of are also as a genre. Like characters, a story's genre makes certain actions easier or harder depending on how well they fit with the genre. If a character's genre and the story's genre both grant a bonus to an action, it can become exceedingly powerful. Archetypes are common types of characters that are found in all genres of fiction. The 5 presented in the core rulebook are the damsel, the hero, the mentor, the rogue, and the sidekick. There are also 3 antagonist archetypes for use: the henchman, the monster, and the villain. Roll the dice. So then we have a D6 system.
Yeah.
With some actions requiring multiple successes so that you add up to, higher difficulty ratings.
It's a pretty common mechanic, I think.
Yeah.
It's prevalent in like the White Wolf games and the Unisystem games.
So we're going to look at the pledges, and then we'll look at kind of an interesting thing that I don't think we've ever seen before on the show.
I don't think so either.
Okay. So at the $10 level, you have your everlasting thanks and the honor of being named in our core rulebook as a contributor. That's pretty cool. You don't get the book itself, but for $10 you're in there. So for $25, you receive a free PDF of the Storybook RPG core rulebook. You're named and you have thanks. For $50, you get the signed physical Storybook rulebook, the PDF, you're named, and you get a set of 10 custom dice. For $100, you get a pair of character sheet pads, 50 count each. Signed physical Storybook RPG core rulebook, set of 10 custom dice, the PDF of the game, blah, blah, blah. $250, a logo debossed journal, and all the other crap. For $500, custom printed fountain pen. So they're very much, and like the titles of these two are
they're
kind
really
of
like leaning into the literature aspect here.
It's like,
I like it.
Writer, author, novelist, editor, publisher. How high can we go, Brian? Designer. Backers who pledge $1,000 or more will be allowed to design one of the archetype or genre exemplar characters. You will communicate with myself and Justin Donaldson, who is doing the artwork, to ensure that your vision is faithfully executed.
Cool.
That's okay, a cool feature. So at the bottom of this screen is something that we've never seen before, which is a pie chart that shows where does your green go. And I think this is really cool. You notice this, and it breaks down how all the money's being spent, which is really very transparent of them. I'm like, that's really kind of cool. As a backer, I'd love to know what the breakdown is.
And I think a lot of these financial aspects get overlooked, right? I think if you're not publishing, you don't think about the cost of art.
Yeah.
Right? Art is expensive to make good art.
Dude, it's like a quarter.
Yeah.
And
it should be.
And obviously book printing. When you're doing a physical book, you know that that's going to be there.
Yeah.
And then the next kind of
rewards.
Biggest wedge is the donor rewards, which makes sense. If you're backing something early on, you should get something for the value of being an early backer versus just buying it in a store.
I'm not sure what permits and registration is, but it's only 1%.
I wonder if that's
licensing and that kind
licensing
of stuff.
for some of the fairy tale stuff, maybe, or names I don't know, other fees, Kickstarter's cut, the character sheet pads. So that's
a cool breakdown.
Yeah, and I mean,
this is a cool Kickstarter. It reminds me a little bit of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen / Van Helsing scenario.
Yeah.
But not in a way that's going to disappoint me and end Sean Connery's career.
Right.
It's cool. I like the idea. Because it provides a new approach to not just tabletop RPGs, but how we think about tabletop RPGs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think often we think about things in terms of genre, but we don't go through the last step of like saying we're talking about genre, right?
Yeah.
And I think this gives kind of a cool opportunity to like lean into that and like kind of do that justice.
And right? I think it's clearly it's less crunchy. It's not heavy mechanics and a lot of number crunching.
But it's a lot of D6s. Like
it seems like they're very much leaning towards a more of a narrative thing.
Yeah.
Which I think the whole point is that like there might be naysayers who are like, well, if you wanted to mix genres, why wouldn't you just do like riffs?
Because I don't want to buy 1,100 books.
Right. That could be part of it. But it seems like a very straightforward, kind of simple, easy to learn. That and he references that kind of stuff. I think that's great. I think it's a great thing. And again, for the $50 pledge level, we've talked about this. That's
one D&D book.
Yeah, when you get a physical book, that's kind of the new bar. Like, expect
and
to pay $50.
I'll give you a hot take. It's not even a very new bar. Like,
no,
3rd edition books were $50.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like that is just kind of the state of the times, and you're getting the physical book, you're getting the PDF, you're getting the recognition. Set of 10 custom dice, right? So like all that stuff.
They're sending you pad. I imagine that the pads of character sheets are like legal pads that are like glued. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like
with design on them.
With design on
them.
Not
yeah,
something, it's not like a blank legal pad, but like.
But I'm sure with the PDF,
easy to tear off character sheet. Like that's
or maybe
a cool
there's
idea.
Color in it too.
Yeah, that's
maybe they have like the low ink black and white version in the PDF.
Yeah.
But then this is like kind of the fancier ones.
Yeah.
And you get dice. So I mean, like that's all kind of cool. And the theme.
Yeah.
Like they're sticking with the be a writer and stuff. Create your own stories, your legends. I like it.
I like this because they've come up with a product, and they're branding the product as a whole. Right. Like even the Kickstarter pledge levels are building into the narrative they're creating around their brands. So.
And just if you are tuning in live with us right now, I pasted the link to that one into the Twitch chat, so you can check it out on your own time, and maybe you will pledge. Maybe you don't want to do the $50 version, but you pop for $25 and you get the PDF, and you have some funds with the friend and family. Let's go on to the next one. Mm-hmm. This one does have a video. It's called Leviathan Rising, an enlightenment-punk role-playing game.
Never heard of enlightenment-punk. I've heard of biopunk.
We've heard of steampunk.
Cyberpunk. Biopunk.
Enlightenment-punk must be that era prior to... because steampunk's typically like Victorian era.
Steampunk is Victorian...
So this is before that?
Steampunk is a Victorian view of the future.
Right.
So this is like pre-punk.
Yeah. A tabletop RPG of 17th century rebels fighting for fraternity, equality, and liberty. So it's historically set, but it's obviously fictional, parallel universe stuff. So Dave, let's get ready to roll and watch that sound, people.
Make sure the stream is muted.
All right, the stream is... Monocled Moose says, it's when CM Punk does yoga. That's pretty good.
Let me tell you of Leviathan Rising, a beast who rises to consume us all and take our freedom, our liberty, and our very lives. Here is the Ritter von Terburg, a lord of the peerage, and a man about to begin his evil ritual. But the right requires the submission of a broken people, requires them to serve and obey, and we know our heroes can break the chains on these shackled minds and liberate them so that they may breathe free again. With the right broken. But the soldiers of the peerage do not take kindly to the works of their masters being broken. But no matter, our heroes can deal with it, and with the protection broken from the sacrifices to Stern freed, we may move on the Ritter himself. And with all our allies on hand, soon he will find his deserved punishment. Now, listen to me, my brothers and sisters. The peerage are rising. They want to make slaves of you and the whole world. Join the rebellion. Raise your hands with us. Raise the flag of freedom, of equality, of liberty. Join the resistance. Fight the peerage. Find your freedom. Save this world.
Hi everybody, my name's Stephen Fleetwood. I'm the creator of Leviathan Rising. Leviathan Rising is a tabletop RPG using the Fate system. In Leviathan Rising you'll be playing high action, high power magical rebels in an alternate 17th century, where you'll be fighting for the ideas of freedom, equality and liberty to smash the evil peerage. I hope you can back us and enjoy the game. Thanks very much.
And that was Leviathan Rising, an enlightenment-punk role-playing game. This has been launched by Stephen Fleetwood, who has 2 other created Kickstarters. So they are at 31 days to go currently, with 70 backers, and they're at $3,073, which is
just over half.
Yeah, just over half their goal. So let's take a look, Brian.
Maybe this genre is big in Europe. I don't know. Like, this is a European Kickstarter, so like maybe it's a thing that exists in Europe.
Yeah, well, I see a lot of, obviously it seems to be set there. So characters in Leviathan Rising are chosen by the rebellion to represent them and spearhead the fight for freedom. They can expect to move across Europe, fighting corrupt nobles, defending the innocent, freeing the enslaved and wrongfully imprisoned, opposing tyranny and stirring the hearts of the people toward liberty. In this, they have been aided by the magic of the right of the champion. This right has fused a spirit with the soul of the character, meaning that when they are acting to further their righteous beliefs, they are able to manifest supernatural powers from the spirit. Opposing the heroes are the Peerage, a secret society of corrupt nobles who have found the power of ritual magic and now use it more fully oppress, subjugate their people. The Peerage has the eventual goal of elevating one of its number to the very heavens as a dark new god. Leviathan Rising is a game about outcast heroes. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
The world of Leviathan Rising is similar to mid-17th century Europe. This
Cool.
is a game of alternate history, and almost any detail you can think would be interesting from history can be moved across. This is a time of great unrest in Europe, which can be used profitably in your games. The English are fighting a civil war against the idea of a divinely appointed monarch, and the rebellion and the peerage are supporting their respective sides. The Dutch have just finished fighting their war of independence from the Spanish Empire. The Holy Roman Empire has been torn apart by the 30-Year War. The Spanish in France and all throughout Europe. So they have all these different references to actual history. But then they integrate magic. The world of Leviathan Rising is a low magic world for the most part. The people live in suspicious ignorance of what magic can do, and some do not believe in it at all. Cool.
This is cool to me because it reminds me of the original Assassin's Creed game before before the franchise kind of got off the rails, where like there are unsolved historical mysteries. Let's come up with an explanation for all of them and make a neat game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like this idea of like there's magic. Like magic had to do with these mysteries in real history. Like it shows like there's a lot of research that has gone into this product, obviously.
Yeah.
And that's exciting. It's also powered by Fate, which makes it a little bit more accessible. I have not used the Fate system, but
I was going to say, Brian,
have.
for me, tell me what the Fate system.
So I couldn't.
But
I don't
if
know,
something's powered by, does that? It's one of those open gaming license kind of concepts?
A little bit. It'd be like if you used the mechanics of 5th edition and put your own setting on it, right? Like if you played like Starjammer.
But do they have
edition.
to? Okay, so it's like the Monty Cook things, right? Like Numenera uses. No, different.
I don't know if that's Fate system or not.
All right. So, but there are systems basically
Right.
where you can license it or use it or open gaming license it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're using a system, but they've invented their own kind of whole world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's go into what the pledge levels do.
Sure.
So you got your $1. Yes, thank you. 15 pounds.
Yeah.
Or
Pounds.
what is that? Pounds. Digital copy of the game. Okay,
That's
cool. 25 is the pledge to
It's
get.
like $35.
Uh-huh. Copy of Leviathan Rising.
Cool.
Physical copy. So, Actually, that's
It's a pretty good deal.
a pretty good deal.
I don't know if it's going to be like full color or how they're going to bind it.
Yeah,
or whatever,
well, but I mean, so you get the copy and the digital copy.
PDF,
That's cool. They have a retailer bundle.
Cool.
Then for £35 or about $46, play the game at the UK Games Expo with the author.
Wow. Scroll up a second.
That's crazy.
So the retail bundle is $25. Scroll up more.
It's cheaper.
It's the same price. You get
But you get two copies of the book.
Yeah, but they're actually you probably have to show your license.
Okay.
Your retail license for retail customers only. So like they're actually this is something I don't see a lot in like the retailer bundles is like a real wholesale cost for retailers on Kickstarter. Right? Like often like the retailer bundle is like $5 off per copy. So if the game is $20, 5 copies of it is like $100, right?
This is half price.
This is a substantial wholesale rate.
Good for them.
So yeah, so this
Good
is
for you
this
guys.
is cool. As a retailer, I appreciate like seeing people think about like game stores and other retail environments.
What do you guys think? I'm curious about this. Like what? It'll be interesting to see.
But
Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see what people say in the comments and stuff about whether or not this is. I mean, to me, I've always liked games that have some tie into history. Like I liked Vampire the Masquerade, the Dark Ages version, because it was kind of cool to envision, kind of like you said, some of those mysterious historical events being attributed to the war between vampires.
And you've been into various renditions of Cthulhu also for the same reason, you know.
Those kind of cool tie-ins.
Yeah.
So at the 40-pound level, you get a whole bunch of swag. Look at that. A set of fate dice, a set of fate counters, a bag to hold it all in. You get the book.
Any stretch goal concept.
So basically that's 40 pounds, which is $52, which is basically what other Kickstarters are giving out for just one copy of the book with nothing else.
Yeah. Which makes me think it's probably like the photos you see are probably the images in the book. It's probably black and white.
Wow, dude.
Oh, wow.
So for $78 or 60 pounds, you get a warband. This is the complete set to help your group play the game. So you get 2 sets of counters, 2 sets of dice, 2 copies of the book.
And
That's
that
crazy.
literally, like, that's all you need for a group.
Yeah.
It makes it a little inconvenient to, like, share books across. But, like, 2 rule books is probably enough to make it work.
So their highest pledge level, 60 pounds, or
Is it?
$78, is all gone. And that was a copy of the book, a set of the counters, all that stuff. Work with us to help build a sample character in the book.
Oh, that's cool.
Reward no longer available. So they had it limited to 8 backers.
That's a cool concept.
And
is,
that's
like,
it. That's as high as it goes.
Yeah. So that's a really cool concept that we've seen in a couple Kickstarters too, where like the top tier is like you get to be a part of this game. You know what I mean? Like you get to help us create content for this book.
Right.
And I think that's like, you know, Initiative has built a brand off building a setting and including the people who play in it.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting thing to see people kind of like diving in on that, you know.
Just tagging into some of the other people who are here tuning in. Hello from Switzerland. Well, hello to you, Mina.
I know that one's Swiss. They
Yeah.
speak Swiss. Maybe they don't. Maybe they speak Dutch.
As I was looking at the stretch goals, Brian, I noticed that when they achieve some of these unlocks, they are including extra art. So you were right about, like, it looks like basically if they hit their stretch goals, they'll get a little more art into the book than the basic thing. Then at the 6,000 pound level, they have comic supplement. So they'd have a comic. They have incentives for social media sharing.
Cool.
Like, that's really cool.
That's a cool idea.
100.
That's something I haven't seen. Also,
You get a PDF adventure.
This is the
for 100
first.
shares.
This is their first Kickstarter.
Second.
Second.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
I will also put this into the chat, and obviously if you're watching this later, this is in the description below the video on every episode on the YouTube channel. So check that out. And again, it's called Leviathan Rising. So if you're watching on the live behind the scenes camera or on the live Twitch chat, you can check that out. That was number 2. The last one is what happened at Wyvern Rock.
Yeah.
So Brian, you found this one. Give us a
kind
summary
of
before we watch this.
So
scary...
this is kind of like a big like what if scenario. Like there's a big like genre of comic, like the what if comics that came out every year for a while.
Yeah.
This is a little bit similar to that in terms of like this is a combining genres thing too. It gives you rules to add like cryptids and aliens and like other encounters to your fantasy setting.
Now this is a short run. They only have 5 days to go. Good news is
it's already fully funded.
They fully funded. Yeah, they're at $3,660 of an original $1,000 pledge goal with 337.
Which tells me
backers.
the work was largely already done, and they're covering the printing costs.
Right. So, they have. Well, let's see what this is about. Dave, you ready to roll the video?
Hi, my name is Drew. I'd like to talk to you about flying saucers. For the past 5 years, I've been hand-carving medieval images of UFO abductions. When I first heard about the Zine Quest initiative from Kickstarter, I was really excited because this would be an opportunity for me to combine my side hustle hobby with my other hobby. So what I want to do is write a zine called What Happened at Wyvern Rock, where I'm going to give you tips about introducing the world of High Strangeness, so UFO abductions, Men in Black, cryptids like the Mothman, Missing Time, all that weird stuff from the fun X-Files episodes, into your high fantasy game. The zine will be in 4 parts. For the first issue, I will cover an introduction to High Strangeness, what it is, how you can use it, how you can deploy all that weird stuff. Second part will be encounter tables based on J. Allan Hynek's Close Encounter levels, so Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that sort of thing. Then there'll be some adventure hooks based on actual real-world UFO encounters, and then lastly an in-depth look at the Greys, which are, I think, the #1 best-known weird alien species out there, outside of Vulcans or whatever. I'm only asking for $1,000. This is my first Kickstarter, so I'm trying to keep everything pretty simple. I have a lot of material already written. As you can see, I have a lot of things already carved. I should be ready to go, hopefully by the summer, to be able to send things out to everyone. I'm really looking forward to this opportunity, and thank you for taking your time to watch this. Thanks.
Okay, that's it for that video. Brian, Wyvern Rock, we were talking about this. Resources. This is a resource thing.
Yeah.
And it's...
So this is meant to add to, my guess is a 5th edition game. It's adding these like modern cryptid monsters to a fantasy setting. And here's like the reason this struck out to me is because like I'm always thinking about new content to add to the Anathema setting, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea of like writing up a monthly Penny Dreadful for Commonwealth has been something I've been thinking about and mulling over for a year now. It's just been a situation of like I don't have time to write it. I don't have people who are excited to write things for free, nor should they be.
And art. So this guy does art, right? I mean, it's clear that he's into that part of it, and he's combining the love of the UFOlogy and the art that he does.
And it seems like it goes a little bit beyond that, right? He mentioned Mothman,
right?
Like, this is the kind of stuff like if you're a fan of the current like Adventure Zone from the McElroy brothers, like this is probably right up your alley. Like it's a cryptid kind of situation to add into your fantasy setting. So I think it's cool. I might back this myself. It seems like a cool resource for me.
Yeah, I mean, and he goes on to explain High Strangeness. So High Strangeness is a concept introduced by Dr. J. Allan Hynek, now seen being played by Littlefinger on the History Channel's Project Blue Book, that covers the weird elements of UFOlogy, those experiences that cannot be directly explained or quantified. This is the weird stuff, weirder than just seeing a flying saucer. It's the unreality that often accompanies a sighting, animals not behaving as they should, mysterious figures lurking at the fringes, dreams and visions and prophecies. All cool stuff. So it's the kind of integration of these concepts, and he mentions in this that like it's not something that currently there really isn't a lot of that in fantasy role-playing games where you bring in aliens.
Right. I think it's so easy to just like pass everything, all the unexplained like phenomena off as like just like magic.
Or
right?
the gods.
Or
Or demons.
Whatever, or demons.
Yeah.
Or like the Fae is like a frequent one. But I think this is a cool resource to kind of like, if not add cause, add atmosphere to your games.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think one of the things that in most games that I play or I see is a lack of like an atmosphere around weirdness, right? Like weird things happen and then you go and solve weird things, but it's all kind of hand-waved, right? Mm-hmm. So it sounds like, and I really hope it does, this Kickstarter is meant to kind of build on that and develop an atmosphere around the weirdness involved in these weird things that happen, right? It's not necessarily the thing, it's like the other things like tangent to the weird thing. Right.
Well, and like the aftermath of it, the visions, that kind of stuff. There's so many potential ways to integrate story hooks and interesting NPCs. So he talks about in the plan that this will cover, or that it'll include, an introduction to the world of High Strangeness, plus how to apply it to a fantasy campaign setting, random close encounter tables, scenario hooks based on real UFO encounters, and then species spotlights. So a lot of kind of focused stuff, and I really dig the sample pages here. Dave, if you we're cut to that, so you could see like it's cool, and I think you appreciate this. I know Elise would appreciate this. Any kind of like handcrafted, old school printed stuff, or if this is in fact woodcuts, that's really, really cool. That's really, really cool. And he's got a very DIY kind of ethic.
Scroll
up.
That's
really cool.
Scroll up a minute. Yeah, I've been carving scenes. Yeah, this is his stuff. And what is the price point on this stuff?
Okay, so let's take a look. There again, he's already funded, so he's in good shape. But PDF version of issue 1 for $5. Okay, so $10.
Or $10 for a hard copy.
Physical hard copy.
That's all. That's all the tiers. And here's the thing: like $10, like if you don't spend time with artists paying for art, like you don't realize that like if you get prints of his cuts for $10 for physical copies,
right?
That alone is worth $10,
right?
Like,
I would pay $10 for a print that I liked that was 8 by 10, right? And that would be like reasonable. Like if I was at a convention, if I'm at GaryCon,
easily
Gen Con,
you'd be paying $10
if not
for
20, 25.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is $10 for an entire issue, which probably has anywhere from
for 4 issues. He said he's doing 4 issues.
Okay. So that's extremely reasonable. So I don't know. It's like I said, this is a short timer on here. So if you're into it,
you gotta pull the trigger in the next 5 days.
Exactly.
But
Monocled Moose on the chat points out X-Files meets D&D.
Yeah.
Well played, my friend. And that, I loved that show back in the day. Like, we watched it religiously. It got to a point where it kind of jumped the shark. But I loved it because, again, it tied in all these weird phenomena and things with historical things and with the characters and made it really draw you into that world of paranoia and uncertainty, and it adds so much. So, well played. Those are our 3. Good job, Brian.
Yeah,
I had no idea what you were gonna get, but those are solid. Like,
I wanted to get away from like terrain and dice and minis and accessories.
Yeah.
And just look at ways to like spice up your game.
yeah, that's
from a narrative perspective.
that is very cool. And I mean, very recently, one of the fans of both of the shows, who goes by Bash Prompt, was like suggesting that we run a game, even if it's a mini series, where we do it more historically set. Like, we use D&D 5e, but we do historical things like the Visigoths versus the whatever, And I was like, oh, that would be, on an educational level,
Right.
that would be so cool to bring in, like, some high school kids, and we, co-DM a series of historical.
Talk to some history teachers.
Yeah,
here at
like,
LT and
how cool would that be? To integrate some learning into it too. So maybe we'll do that, Bash Prompt, if you're watching. That was a good idea.
cool.
All right, so this has been very positive, and now we're gonna cut back to another topic. It's time for table topics, people. So if you're watching live, we're going to talk about burnout, because it's a thing that happens with anything that you love,
Sure.
right? If you're a video game person, you play your game that you love so much that eventually you're like, I'm done with this game, or I don't have the stamina to solve it. If you're an artist or a writer or whatever it is that you do, a musician, if you do anything enough, you might get burned out on it. Brian, I've been eating a lot of pizza recently. I'm kind of burned out on pizza.
Over pizza.
Yeah. So we're talking about burnout in tabletop role-playing games. And this is something for anybody, players or DMs, that can happen. Brian, I'm burned out.
Yeah, I get that. Like, you run 3-4 games a week.
And so do you. Like, you have your different programs. You have your Monday night program, your Friday night programs, sometimes the weekend programs. You've got Long Rest, you've got Bard's Tale. We're running a lot of games. And when you get burned out, that starts to affect your creativity. It starts to affect
Your
how
attitude,
you react, your attitude,
how you interact
absolutely.
with the other people at the table.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make it seem like we left on a good note with these Kickstarters, and now we're looking at a negative thing, because I think burnout happens, right? Like, I don't approach it from like it's a negative thing. I approach it from like it's another obstacle that needs to be kind of dealt with, however you have to deal with it. Right?
It is, and hopefully the point of this is that we help people think about ways to overcome burnout or to regenerate. Like, that's the goal. It's not to just gripe and complain. So yeah, what are some things? Let's talk about it from the DM perspective.
Sure.
So you run a lot of games. You start to get burned out. What are some things that you can do as a DM to regenerate your powers?
See, I think I have a benefit. I run a lot of games, and I organize for even more, and I think maybe it works for me and against me, right? Like, having different tables to work with kind of keeps my batteries charged longer. Like, it gives me more endurance to be at tables, running tables, because I'm dealing with like different compositions of players, right?
Right.
And so, were you the one who was talking to me about? It was Carlos. So Carlos worked with this teacher in Chicago who tried to like incorporate D&D, and from all accounts successfully incorporated D&D into his whole teaching approach. Right. We talked to him, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. And I gotta be honest, I'm jealous. Like, he did like 1 hour games, but it was like a different makeup every week, right? Because these kids, like, he's got 78 kids he's got to get through this like system he's developing.
Right.
And the different makeups provide different environments to play in, right? So just like changing up the makeup on its own can help. Maybe that's not an option for you.
The people, so in other words, the people at the table bring different chemistry, and that can help to prevent burnout.
Right. I mean, think about D&D with high school students, right? You have a player who has a busy schedule and doesn't always get to be here.
Right.
Her substitute players are often exciting parts of that game.
Yeah.
I would think.
That's been the case a couple times. Yeah, the people subbing in. So one thing, I guess, too, that I would ask you about, and then I'll kind of share is burnout can happen with DMs, and it can happen with players. So I feel like I get burned out more as a player than a DM. And so I'll specify. When I'm a player, if I'm playing in a game and I get burned out, I start to get bored and then I want to make another character. So it's hard for me to stay focused on playing the same character for a really long time because I get burned out playing that character and kind of bored playing that character, and then I want to make a new character.
Sure.
Now, that's a me problem.
Right.
It usually doesn't have anything to do with the DM or how exciting the game is. It has to do with me. And I've been playing this game for 40 years and I'm still working through how to overcome that. Okay. So, but then as a DM, I agree with you that like one of the ways to kind of regenerate is by changing up the chemistry. One of the people in the live chat brought up an interesting thing, which is DoD Spec Ops says rotating. So passing the torch once you get to the point where you're getting burnt out, to allow content to keep moving forward, but allow somebody else to take your place.
And that's what you guys do for your gaming weekend, right?
Right. So that is, if you're in a group, I don't care what the game is, if you're in a group, everybody should have a chance to play. I'm not saying everybody needs to DM, but everybody should have a chance to play. So I'll give you an example from my youth, right? There were like 6 of us in our gaming group. And I'm talking, this is back in like the youth of middle school and high school where like we could play for 20 hours over a weekend, right? I would say of that group of 6, there were probably 3 who could DM. And then 3 who were just not very good narrators and didn't really have the grasp of running the game. And, you know, in the 80s, there wasn't YouTube tutorials for how to be a better D&D player. So, but like we would rotate. So, you know, Justin would run some games sometimes, then I would run some games, and Steve would run some games. And that way we all got to play, even though, you know, we would DM. But we, even back then as kids, we would burn out.
Yeah.
I think even faster because we played more. So
here's what I'll say is, one, I think everybody should have a chance to DM. I think everybody should try to DM at some point.
Yeah, even more than once.
Right.
I would say multiple chances.
I think like any other skill set, it only comes when you do it.
Yep.
In terms of like player burnout and character burnout, I think that's why I approach character development the way I do. Right? So that's why I start my character builds with a concept rather than like a race class combination.
Right.
Because it makes me more invested in my character.
Think about who your character is.
Long term about that character. It gives me insights into what that character's perceptions are and what their ideals are, which gives me more longevity. Like I don't get to that point with my characters where I'm like, I don't want to play this character anymore. You know what I mean? With AL, sometimes I do, because I end up like having to build a character for the sake of like having a character that day, and I'm like,
right.
And I roll dice and whatever. But fortunately, I don't get to play a lot. So
I would agree with you on that for sure. That the how you build the character will definitely have an impact on whether or not you get burned out playing that character. Yeah. If you build a character, and my best example is power gaming. So I've played with power gamers who the idea of the power gamer is simply that like they want to build the best build, like the most optimized build. And I'm not knocking it. People sometimes confuse my
lack
judgment.
of interest in it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking it. I get it. Like I do. I optimize even when I build, but if the only thing motivating you to play the character is to see how perfectly engineered the character is and how they function, that's cool, but like that's not the same in terms of like how much narrative you're going to connect with the character and how much.
And this comes up a lot in AL.
Yeah.
Where like people will come, like there are like the phantom builds that like someone's done the math and at 4th level they're dealing 90 damage around because they've done the right combination of race, class, feats, and options. But realistically, all they're doing is 90 points around.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that works in a system that's combat focused. Like, to its discredit, I guess, AL is still, by and large, fairly combat focused. I think that's more an issue of, like, a need for support for DMs than it is for, like, an intent of the system. But you end up with a lot of players who, like, are really good at combat, and then, like, as soon as combat's over, they're checked out.
Yeah.
Right? Because they haven't given themselves the tools to be interested in any other aspect of the game. And that's why I say, like, focus on building characters that are meaningful to you, not, like, it's not like a stat point array, like, built into a mechanic system.
Right.
Like, come
Not
up
just
with a
what they
character
could do,
and find
but
out how
who
to
they
get
are.
there.
Yeah, who they are.
And
Makes
5th
a
edition,
big
to its
difference.
credit, has done a lot to increase, like, there's a whole, like, right margin that's, like, your ideals, bonds, and flaws
Well, and you
on the sheet, you know?
You've pointed this out much more than me in various episodes of the show, that 5th edition has really given everybody the perspective that there are 3 pillars of play.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a world where D&D was very
Dungeon
much
crawls.
dungeon crawls.
Yeah.
It was all about. There was literally no mechanic for socializing.
And
it
it
was,
still can be.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that there's no room for that. I'm suggesting that, like,
but D&D's
my expectation is you're going to get more burnout if all you're doing is hitting monsters and subtracting it.
So let's segue, because I think we're getting somewhere in terms of the therapeutic options.
Mm-hmm.
If you're burnt out, okay, then rethink your game and take a look at what 5th edition has provided. And the 3 pillars involve exploration and social interaction as well as combat. If you're burnt out, ask yourself this question. Is your game, whether you're a player or a DM, is it mostly about just combat and dungeon crawls? If it is, maybe focus more on some of those other pillars. Create an area in your world, or if you're using an existing world, find an area that is less explored. If you're playing in the Forgotten Realms, that is a huge map.
Huge.
And even over the many editions, there are whole countries that are very, very, very barely published.
Right.
So you
They're
can create.
referenced in one
they're
document
referenced
or brought up in
There's
2
plenty
novels.
of room for exploration. So go have your characters be explorers. Have them be hired by some important company or noble to explore this land or to go recover some lost blah blah blah. Include that exploration. Have more social interaction. Create some interesting NPCs that aren't just enemies.
Yeah.
Make your world socially more just than black and white. Like,
Right.
have some people who maybe they're good but they're flawed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're good but they have addictions. Maybe
Right.
they're good but there's some mystery part of their
So-
past that they're hiding.
I want to speak to this a little bit because I've just been watching Umbrella Academy all this weekend on Netflix.
Wow. Yeah, buddy.
And I'm going to spoil a bunch of shit right now.
wait,
So-
don't. I've only seen the first episode. All right, go ahead.
Here's what I'll say is Umbrella Academy, more so than a lot of other shows I've seen, have done really good at making me care the most about the villain. Right? The villain is the most I connect with the villain more than any of the heroes in that show. And that's exciting for me because it means that, like, that villain is not just this evil thing that has to be dealt with. It's a person that has these goals, these motivations, these flaws, that is maybe from a sociological standpoint a victim of a lot of societal issues, which doesn't excuse the behavior, but at some point, like, explains it. And I think, like, when you're building characters, you really have to consider how they got where they are. Okay. We're good.
Good?
Good.
So, interesting thing that I just discovered, people. If you close your ears and you find the pitch at which the person is speaking, like Brian has a low voice, so I had to drop it down, and then I just wavered that pitch. It literally erases his sound print.
Wow.
Like, I just dropped, I was like, and I found the pitch that you were at, and then I just kind of wavered across it, and it was like, I could hear you, but I couldn't make out the words.
Yeah.
That was excellent.
Your chat's blowing up.
Okay.
I
Sorry.
didn't see much of it.
People have ideas.
Yeah. Cool. I'm excited.
The burnouts are happening. Okay, so yeah, people are talking about min-maxing. All right, so DoD says character investment is really needed to keep the creative flow happening, meaning your involvement to the game it's more intense than one-day adventure where you don't care and you're unfocused. True.
I think another thing to keep in mind is the other people at the table have interesting things also. And not so much like you should be involved in every scene, but you should appreciate what's going on. So you should be invested in the other people at the table.
Right.
And I think that plays off of that.
Gadsden Culpepper, in line with what you just said, everybody's going to have a different approach, right? So he's like min-maxers. They have a place at the table, but I think the mindset is more video game-ish, and they don't want to fail. I believe all mindsets work together if they have a great table at the table and they can have great contributions. That's true. But it's possible to play with people who are min-maxers and power gamers, but also have a narrative element. It just makes it harder for the DM, but maybe that's good.
Yeah, and as a DM, if you have built in a system where failure isn't an option, maybe rethink that. Because I think like a lot of burnout comes from like beating your head against a wall and then not getting through. But oftentimes players forget about the option of just leaving, right? Like, this isn't a video game where you don't get to advance unless you beat the boss. Like, tabletop RPGs are cool because you have the option of just, like, not completing the task, right? That option has consequences. But ultimately, like, it's a thing on the table that can still advance the story and the plot.
Brandon Simmons said that I postponed my game due to burnout. Happy the party is willing to work with me. And you know what? They should be. If you're playing with a group of people and you're honest with them and you're like, you guys, I don't have any ideas. I'm kind of burned out. I need like a week off. They should be cool with that. And if they're not, maybe they're dicks, you know? So like be reasonable with your friends.
I mean, the other thing I want to touch on is just like time away is not necessarily a cure-all for burnout.
That's true too.
Like, Glenn Brown, actually, when I took his creative writing classes, told me, like, you should be consuming 7 times as much content as you're creating. So if you're a writer...
As a writer, oh, wow.
If you're a writer, you should be reading 7 times as much as you're writing. If you're a musician, you should be listening to music 7 times... Like, you should be listening to 7 times as much music as you're creating.
So it's important to play as well as DM.
Play or just, like... consume other stories.
Yeah.
Right?
Watch streams, read books.
Play other games.
Play other games.
Like,
play board games.
Play board games. Play other, like, one-shot RPGs.
Yeah.
Like, I think that there's a lot of resources available insofar as just, like, there's an entire industry built on, like, passing time by playing fun games with neat stories. You can do that. Like, there's a couple of phone app games now, like Weave, and then swear to God, I got it for Christmas, and I will bring it next week because I have been referencing it without knowing its name since Christmas.
Wow.
But they're like one-player RPGs, like because it's based off like a randomized phone app.
Yeah, and I think time away can be useful, but like you said, it's not necessarily the cure-all. It's what you do with the time away and how you use it. So I have music moods, and I'm sure you and everybody else does. I'm into a lot of different music, and sometimes I find the music that matches the mood that I'm in a cathartic way. So if I'm feeling a little depressed, because depression is real, I tend to listen to depressing music.
Right.
I don't know. It's kind of weird. You'd think it'd be the opposite. I'd want to listen to like upbeat stuff.
Right.
But sometimes that's not it. Sometimes I need to wallow in it for a while.
Sometimes you need to match the tone with the thing you're trying to drown out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, Brian. Yeah. So burnout. Another thing too is like sometimes you're burned out on the specific game or campaign, and guess what? I'm telling you right now, it's okay.
It's fine
to take a break and come back. We met playing in my game, The Handyman. The Handyman was great. There was nothing wrong with it. But it was hard to maintain the schedule with the people who were in it because they all had like
real adult
jobs
or
things
whatever,
and people
families.
moved. Yeah. Does that mean I'll never come back to it? I don't know. I'd like to, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. With the gaming weekend thing, like people get burned out DMing, they want a rotation. Or in my case, I get burned out playing and I want to DM sometimes and then come back to the character I was playing because I'll like him more. I think all of those things are absolutely valid. And I think that people, whether it's reading, playing music, or doing art, or playing other games, watching shows, movies, whatever, sometimes you need to replenish the creative juices, replenish the soul. One more thing, too. Sometimes get away from the screens and the tables.
Yeah.
Like, go out for that walk. Go out, find the natural places around where you live, and go on a hike, and just get out into nature, or get away from people and civilization. Go camping. Those kind of experiences are huge. For me, travel is huge. I was fortunate growing up to be the last kid in a big family, and my parents were older and kind of had a little more time and disposable income, so I got to travel a lot. I've been to Europe, I've been to Asia, I've been to Central America, and everywhere I've been has been a source of inspiration for me that I brought into role-playing games, to see other cultures and learn about people's languages and histories and settings. Yeah. So all of that stuff could regenerate you and help you
And that doesn't
avoid burnout.
Like, travel doesn't have to mean Asia.
No, yeah, it could
Like,
be.
Chicago is a really interesting place because we have a very urban environment, and less than an hour from here is a very rural area. There's a very like geographically interesting terrain in like a starved rock. Like, there's a lot of different things that can inspire you in terms of like your creative flow, in terms of like your view of the world within an hour or so. So it's a really benefit for us. I mean, if you're in like an LA situation, maybe that's not an option, right? Like, but like if you're local, like you're pretty lucky to be in a place that like everything is close.
Yeah. And if, I feel like no matter where you live,
Yeah.
you might take for granted where you live and not think that it's very interesting. But I'll bet if you just took a break and went for a walk, even sometimes when I just walk around the neighborhood, I'll see something that I didn't notice. And I've lived here all my life, and I'm like, I never noticed that house had a weird turret on the roof.
I think if you feel like your environment is not interesting, you should talk to someone from anywhere else.
Right.
And you'll be reminded how interesting your environment is.
Exactly. Exactly.
The other thing I will say is, like, when you're looking for these other activities, put everything on the table.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're a DM and you're feeling burnt out because your games are combat focused, go do a couple of escape rooms. And try to, like... And I know I've been, like, on an escape room, like, fix for the last couple of months.
Yep.
But, like, their jobs are to make puzzles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's great.
It's going to be an interesting thing no matter what. Like, and maybe you don't love it, but, like, you'll be better for having, like, gone through the process of, like, deciphering those puzzles, and maybe you'll take something away from it.
Right. A lot of people in the chat are talking about things that they do. I'm going to share some of those here. Just there's so many, but let's see. I used to play ElfQuest to offset D&D. Or one time I played with a min-maxer who was only good in combat but was bored outside of combat because he did not make a character. He made a action video game character. Somebody else has been playing a character who has been running from almost every combat encounter we've had because he's a coward. That is awesome.
One of my AL characters is just like that, and I love it.
Levarnu, sorry. I can't read.
And there's nothing, and especially at an AL table filled with power gamers, there's nothing more exciting than going in the next room while they're still in combat.
I run away. Yeah. Become an NPC who plays along with the storyline versus being in the group of adventurers. I did that a few times in the past. Yeah, so my character on the Bard's Tale, Ray, is a cook at the Bard's College, and like that was his concept. I wanted to make a cook first and foremost, and like his class and race all kind of fell into it, and that became part of his backstory. But the initial concept that I said to Brian was like, I want to make basically a character of an NPC, and what every adventuring party they always like go out with, you know, their 50 feet of rope and backpacks and bedrolls and water and rations and a 10-foot pole, but they never have a cook. And I'm like, I want to make a cook. And that was the whole concept. And it's been fun. So that, you know, whatever it is that you, whether it's from the player side or the DM side, change things up a little bit, take a step back every once in a while, rotate, like some of you guys have said in the chat, just, you know, take turns and then try different things. You know, remember that there are 3 pillars of gameplay for a reason. You know, make some more social encounters, or if you're the player in the game, tell your DM, say, I really want to use some of my social skills. Can you have some situations where like we have to really work together diplomatically,
or take the lead?
Yeah,
try to talk your way out of a fight.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Use your persuasion and deception and intimidation, and you know. I think, you know, here's a character concept that I've toyed around with, which is it's a play off the coward, but basically, what if you had a character who was absolutely horrible in combat, just like really low dex and strength, but had like a crazy high charisma and intimidation, and he literally just intimidated his way through every combat. Like, how far could you go with that? Would that be boring? I don't know. So let me see. Yeah, the unlikely hero. Make a character who's like Bilbo or Frodo, you know, the most unlikely hero, not the savior, but the one that was needed. Somebody else says that they have 2 druids and a cook, and our cook feels horrible because everyone keeps eating good berries. Aw, that's rough. All right, well, thanks for playing along with us on this this exploration of burnout, which I think is a very real topic. Hopefully. I feel better now.
Awesome.
Just talking about it, I feel less burned out. Who knows? So right before we hit up Monster Monday, Brian, let's talk about upcoming things. So Gary Con's coming up in March. We're about 2 weeks out from Gary Con. You will be floating around. Are you going to have any secret goodies for people who find you? Like
Sure.
Okay.
I don't know how many.
Okay.
It will be less than 15.
So if you're going to Gary Con, maybe find Brian, and if you do, play the game of Find the Handyman.
I might have a secret sample of something for you.
And we'll be around. We have obligations in the form of working on video streams, but definitely, you know, come out to the panels, play your games, and then I think, you know, we'll have times throughout the day where we're around. So if you're going to Gary Con, leave a comment below and let us know how to get a hold of you. And we definitely like to see as many of the friends in the gaming community as possible. So let me see. We have what books do we have today?
I don't know. And just to touch base, I know that we announced that we were going to talk about the new D&D release. We'll do that next week.
Yeah, because we're
short on time.
Short on time.
We'll do that next week because I don't want to short circuit that. So
we have Monster Manual 5th edition, Monster Manual 3 3rd edition. Sorry, first Monster Manual 3rd edition, and then Mordenkainen's. Let's see who says what. So, what book should Brian do his Monster Monday from today, people?
Anything but Mordenkainen.
Anything but Mordenkainen's. Yay, new D&D book is coming. Yes, Aquabone. We'll talk about that next week. 2.
I don't know. I'm going to do this one then. I don't know what that means.
All right, you'll do that one. I'll do Mordenkainen's.
Okay.
All right, now it's time for the dreaded page flip.
So we need a page number between... Mordenkainen is weird because it's got all this extra stuff in the front. Where do the monsters start?
Okay, we need a page number for my monster from Mordenkainen.
Between 115...
Between 115...
and 252.
And 252. First one up in the chat gets it. Slight delay, slight delay. 142, Nicholas Holmes. 142 it is.
Oh, man.
Now, if it's something we've already done, what are the odds of that?
Oh,
no.
Looks rough.
Oh, no. That's not just a monster. That's a... all right. Okay, people. We need a minute. Brian, what'd you get?
I got Nightwing.
I got Baphomet.
I'm sorry. I got all of the Nightshades, actually, which is exciting because it's the first thing I ever killed a party member with.
Okay. All right. I need a moment to read about this.
Mm-hmm. I have the Nightshades. The Nightshades are huge / gargantuan undead. They are a equal parts shadow and evil, which is an interesting descriptor. I think these are probably the results of atrocities, right? When an atrocity is committed, the shadow of that event leaves a nightshade on the land. I think largely which nightshade is used is determined by how bad the atrocity is. I think largely we're looking at genocide or destruction of, like, maybe the smaller ones would be like burning down an orphanage with children and real evil shit. Pardon me. They're pretty serious. The CRs are 14, 16, and 18 in 3rd edition. I'm not sure. I don't think they show up in 5th ed yet. Pardon me. But I think maybe the party encounters in a long abandoned location. They have to. They're there to, like, seek treasure or seek information or kind of whatever, and they have to encounter these beasts that are there to keep the location's secrets, I suppose. And it's just kind of like a neutral force that is interested in malevolence. They read and understand all forms of language, but only communicate telepathically, which is terrifying. They have pretty wicked spell casting abilities like Finger of Death. This is a pretty serious encounter. I might, like, if it's a really bad location, I might, like, put a big one in and then a couple of little ones to kind of represent a couple of, like, bad particular events that happened in an overall atrocity. But I think ultimately, like, they're going to be like a scar that is left by terrible things that have been done in locations, probably tied to the location. They're probably not going to be able to, like, get further than, like, the immediate surrounding area. Like, if it's a town that got, like, destroyed, they're not going to be able to move outside of, like, the town. Kind of like Headless Horseman kind of scenario.
Mm-hmm.
But,
solid.
Yeah. So tell me about Baphomet.
On a side note, real quick,
Yeah.
I've noticed that, like, the last bunch of Monster Mondays that we've had have all been coincidentally very, like, deadly, like, higher level.
Tough.
Like, we haven't had any, like, oh, it's a kobold.
Goblins.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
I want to tell you, I did Monster Monday at a panel that I was modding at Capricorn.
Yeah.
And all 4 of us on the panel did a monster. I brought 4 monster
Yeah.
manuals. And everybody got cool monsters, and I got fungus.
You're like, I did this already.
I was like, fungus? Man.
Okay. All right, Dave. So I have Baphomet.
Baphomet. Not Baphomet. That's a very different thing.
Baphomet. Baphomet. I will learn how to pronounce this. This is a demon lord, and it's not just a light demon lord. This is one of the big, scary, huge fiend demons, chaotic evil. This demon lord has been around since the origins of D&D, from the original era. In 5th edition, he's super scary, like maybe unkillable. So to start off with, for those of you who like to know about challenge ratings, this guy's worth 50,000 experience, aka challenge rating 23. So here in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, on page 142, they give you some background on Baphomet. They give you some physical descriptions. They talk about the lair. Baphomet's lair is his palace, the Leviathan, which is on the layer of the abyss called the Endless Maze.
He has very Minotaur features.
Yeah,
That
so
makes
like,
sense.
I don't know why anyone would go there, but let's say that you were put there by some bad interaction with somebody who could put you there. Now you're in a labyrinth full of Minotaurs, Goristros, and Quasits. So if you happen to survive and make it through all that, Baphomet has lair actions, which very powerful things have this special feature, lair actions. So on initiative count 20, just basically almost automatically winning initiative unless somebody has a really high initiative roll, he can take a lair action to cause one of the following magical effects. Seals a doorway or other entrance within the lair. The opening must be unoccupied. It's filled with solid stone for a minute. Or choose a room within the lair that's no larger in any dimension than 100 feet. That's enormous.
In any dimension.
In any
so that's
dimension.
not 100 square feet.
Nope.
That's 100 by 100 by 100.
Gravity is reversed. Okay. And then cast... This is the one I had to look up. The other lair action is Baphomet casts Mirage Arcane, affecting a room within the lair that is no larger in any dimension than 100 feet. The effect ends on the next initiative, count 20. I had to look this up in the player's handbook because it's on page 260. Mirage Arcane is a 7th level illusion spell that lasts 10 minutes. Sorry, it takes 10 minutes to cast normally. He could just do
As
it.
a layer action.
Yep. Duration of 10 days normally, but this lens, So you make terrain in any area look, sound, smell, and even feel like some other sort of terrain. Like, you can read the whole thing. It's on page 260 of the player's handbook. It's a crazy powerful spell. You can alter the appearance of structures or add them where none are present. The illusion includes audible, visual, tactile, and olfactory elements, so it can turn clear ground into difficult terrain or otherwise impede movement.
Can it cause harm?
Creatures with true sight can see through the illusion. However, all other elements of the illusion remain, so while the creature is aware of the illusion's presence, the creature can still physically interact with the illusion. So you might be able to see that that's not tangled thorns, but you still have to move through difficult terrain.
Yeah, here's my question. It's like, if Baphomet makes the Mirage Arcana like, oh, the floor is lava.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
do you die immediately? Like,
So then there's regional effects. So the region containing the lair is warped by his magic. Plant life within a mile grows thick and forms walls. Beasts within a mile become frightened and disoriented. Humanoid spends at least 1 hour within the mile. He must succeed on a DC 18 wisdom saving throw or descend into madness. And then here, conveniently on page 143, is a chart that explains the madness.
of Baphomet.
Yes.
Specifically from the rest of the madness.
This flaw lasts until it's cured. by curing madness. I don't know what that spell is, but yeah. And by the way,
listed
people...
in the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Yes.
Table.
I just want to point out that that's all just lair, just being in the location. Okay, now let's get into the nitty gritty. This dude has an armor class of 22, 275 hit points, a 40 speed. He has massive saving throws, damage resistance to cold, fire, and lightning, damage immunity to poison, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing that is non-magical, condition immunities to being charmed, exhausted, frightened, or poisoned. True sight of 120 feet, so good luck with that sneaking up invisibly. Languages, all. Telepathy, 120 feet. He can charge. If he charges and does a gore attack, you take an extra 3d10 piercing damage. And you have to make a DC 25 strength saving throw or be pushed up to 10 feet away and knocked prone. He has innate spellcasting abilities based on his charisma, which I'll point out is not huge, but it's still pretty good. Spell save of DC of 18. He can innately cast the following spells requiring no material components at will: Detect Magic, Dispel Magic, Dominate Beast, Hunter's Mark, Maze, Wall of Stone. Oh, and Teleport once a day. He has Labyrinthine Recall. He can perfectly recall any path he has traveled, and he's immune to the Maze spell. He has Legendary Resistance 3 times a day. If he fails the saving throw, he can just choose to succeed instead.
There's a lot of things with legendary resistance.
Yeah. Magic Resistance. He has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. Magic Weapons. His weapon attacks are considered magical. Reckless. At the start of his turn, he can gain advantage on all melee attack rolls during that turn, but attack rolls against him have advantage until the start of the next turn. Okay, so now his attacks. He has a multi-attack, 3 attacks, one with Heart Cleaver, that's his big scary blade, one with his bite, and one with his gore attack, 3 attacks per round. Heart Cleaver is plus 17 to hit. He's got 15 feet of reach. It's 2d10 plus 10. His bite is plus 17 to hit, 10-foot reach, and it does 2d8 plus 10. His gore is plus 17 to hit, 10-foot reach, 2d6 plus 10. So that's every round. Just He has Frightful Presence, so anyone within 120 feet of him have to make a DC 18 Wisdom save or become frightened for a minute, and all the disadvantages that provides. And then he has 3 legendary actions.
Per round.
Per round. Only 1 legendary option can be used at a time, and only 1 at the end. Wow. Heart Cleaver attack. Baphomet makes a melee attack with Heart Cleaver. On top of his normal attack. Oh, I see how that is. Wow.
Yeah, so legendary attacks only occur as reactions to, like, in response to someone else's turn.
So somebody actually has the
someone
bravery
else's turn,
to hit him. Yeah. He could just be like, no.
It's like dragons get these sometimes.
Yeah.
Often, like, anything above, like, a CR 12, that's considered, like, a boss kind of thing.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So he can also charge, which costs 2 of his actions. He moves up to his speed, then makes a gore attack. That's it. I mean, as if that was... Now, I didn't give an encounter, right? I just told you about this monster because I had to familiarize myself. So let's rewind a second. Clearly, this is a high-level party encounter, people. Don't put anybody like under level 10 into this. If you have a party in that 10 to 15 range and they're a big party and they're like experienced players,
or there's a lot of like min-maxing going on.
Yeah, maybe. Then I'll say maybe. This seems to me kind of like a 15 to 20 range thing. Okay, so say you've got this party. They have angered a very, very powerful archmage, and basically throughout multiple parts of the campaign, they've thwarted this archmage one time after another, and now the archmage is just PO'd, right? And just needs them to not be around. So the archmage very craftily comes up with an enticing lure, a trick, basically, to have them go through a portal that is going to drop them into the middle of this maze, okay? So the portal has been consensually opened up. It's a one-way portal, right? So the archmage has made a deal with Baphomet, that he's going to send this group of adventurers to Baphomet's maze because they have a bunch of really nice stuff, and he knows that Baphomet will have a fun time torturing these people and maybe even exploiting them and corrupting them and turning them into his minions. And in exchange, the Archmage is going to give Baphomet something as well, which is going to happen later on in the campaign, but it's basically an incentive where the Archmage is going to provide a bunch of innocent souls to Baphomet. So like an endless stream of entertainment to go through the maze, okay? So they make this deal. The Archmage sets up the portal, and then using a series of lures to get the party to go through this dungeon, he conveys that the portal is actually the only way out of the dungeon. And then one of the NPCs who has been assisting the party for a long time now, who's actually a plant, like a deep cover agent from the Archmage, is the first one to go through the portal. So seeing that their friend has gone through the portal, they have no reason to doubt that this is in fact the best way out. So they go through the portal, they find themselves in the maze, they find themselves immediately surrounded by minotaurs. No idea that this is actually a much worse situation that they're in. They just assume that they're in some kind of blighted place. The minotaurs, they probably fight the minotaurs and succeed, but now they have to make their way out of another maze, okay? And all the while not having any idea that all of this was set up by their arch nemesis, this Archmage, who they've been fighting against for a long time. That's where that's going. So, 2 monsters today, Brian, just so I can put it in the notes. What did you have again? The
Nightshades.
Nightshades.
From the 3.0 Monster Manual.
Are you guys doing a monster?
We just finished, Beecher.
I missed it.
And I had Baphomet from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, MTOF.
I will say that the reason that you're getting a lot of high-level monsters in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes is because Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes is filled with high-level monsters.
Yeah.
It's demon lords, so.
Yeah. So, those of you who are afraid of high-level monsters, hold off on this book until your group gets there. And if you're a player and you're in that 10th or higher level, and your DM has this at the table, ooh,
Shake.
pobrecito.
Quake in fear.
Quake in fear. All right, that's going to be a wrap.
Thank you guys so much for joining us on this chilly Monday here in Chicago. Thank you for joining us from all over the world.
From all over the world, yeah.
Like
Our
a lot
friends
of
from
European guests.
Yeah, Germany, Norway, Sweden, Greece, all over the States, Canada. Is there any like critters guide? Martin asks. Well, you know what? In the back of the player's handbook, this is why I love the player's handbook. So much value for your money. In the back of the player's handbook, there are a bunch of beasts and critters and like simple creatures like skeletons. And
I
stuff.
assume you're talking about Critters Guide insofar as like critters rather than like fans of Critical Role. If you're talking about fans of Critical Role, we're not the folks to ask.
Yeah.
But there's probably a guide to that.
So
Mississippi,
Czech Republic,
Mississippi,
Houston,
smiley face emotes,
California,
unfortunately California. What part of California is
right on the San Andreas Fault.
Yeah. Most of Eastern California.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, you guys, and we will be back next week, right?
We will.
Monday's normal. Next week, Monday's normal.
Yeah, the end of the week next week.
And actually, the Monday after that will be our GaryCon recap.
It will, if we're conscious.
Yeah. So if you all, if anybody's going to GaryCon, come track us down. We'll
Find
be there.
us, yeah, for sure.
We'll
I'll try to bring some samples.
Yeah.
Get yourself a free bag of coffee. Check the Sochmeads.
Yep.
I'll give the secret GaryCon password on the Sochmeads for Initiative
And
Coffee
make
Co.
sure, speaking of the Sochmeads, make sure that you tune in to the full episodes, which we repost onto the Initiative Coffee Company YouTube channel later in the week. So go over to youtube.com/Initiative Coffee Company and subscribe.
If we missed any of your comments today,
Yep.
post them on those videos. We're pretty good about responding to them.
Yeah, and if you have suggestions, if there's a specific encounter or terrain or monster that you want us to maybe come up with, we're
Or you're
happy to
having
do
trouble
that.
with.
Yeah,
I mean,
if you need advice,
but we'll
yeah,
we'll be sure to. Even if you're like reading it and you're like, I don't know what this means. I've read a lot of stat blocks.
right.
So.
And it doesn't have to be D&D. We're open to all the other games. So kind of any of the role-playing table topics that you guys have questions about, we're happy to cover that. So thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you next week on Rise and Roll.
Roll together.